Hello and welcome to Big Picture. I am Vishal Dahiya. The third meeting of the Governing Council of Niti Aayog was held in the national capital recently. With an aim to transforming India, the Niti Aayog has envisioned an ambitious agenda for the country to be achieved by 2032. The 5-year plan will now be replaced by a 3-year action plan, which will be part of a 7-year strategy that would in turn help realize a 15-year long-term vision. The targets set by Niti Aayog for the next 15 years include a 3-fold rise in GDP, a rupees 2 lakh increase in per capita GDP, and facilities for people such as housing with toilets, electricity and digital connectivity for all, a fully literate population with unhindered access to healthcare, and a clean India with clean air and clean water, etc., etc. But how will all this become reality? And will it be achievable over the course of next 15 years? For a discussion on this, we are joined by a distinguished panel in the studio. Let me introduce you to our guests one by one. We have with us Mr. S.P. Sharma. He's Chief Economist, PhD Chamber. Then we also have Mr. T.K. Arun, Editor, Opinion of Economic Times. We are also joined by Dr. Nitin Desai. He is the former Chief Economic Advisor of the Government of India. And we also have on OB with us Mr. Harsh Mander. He is the former member of National Advisory Council and a social activist as well. Let me begin with Dr. Desai specifically, since you've been the Chief Economic Advisor of the Government of India. And those were the days when 5-year plans were the norms. Now the 12th 5-year plan, the last 5-year plans has expired on 31st of March. Now it's the days of 3-year action plan, and as Niti Aayog's vision says, then a 7-year plan and then a 15-year long-term vision as well. Do you think this is all workable?
Frankly, it matters very little whether you say 5 years, 7 years, 3 years or whatever. The real point is that the job of a Niti Aayog should have been to identify the challenges that we face. I don't think its job is to write some sort of manifesto on the wonderful things that lie at the end of the road. कि चंदन चांदनी के पार कौन सा ये अग्निपथ के पार वो चंदन चांदनी का देश आपके पास है वो. That's not the point of a Niti Aayog. The Niti Aayog should be focusing much more on what are the immediate challenges for realizing a vision.
Okay.
For instance, the challenges of, that you face with a changed global environment, the challenges that you face of consistent poverty within the country, the challenges that you face of regional inequalities. There are so many issues that would have demanded demand action by the government that I would have liked to see something, and I don't care whether they do it in a 3-year frame or a 5-year frame or a 7-year frame. I'm no great issues on the 3, 7, 15-year notion, but I would say that it should not be used for purposes of this type of rosy picture drawing, but more for mobilizing the country to address real challenges.
Let me bring in Mr. Arun here. Mr. Arun, do you agree with what Dr. Desai is saying, that vision is something which is fine, but then changing it from 5-year to 3-year and then 7-year plan and then a 15-year long-term vision doesn't actually matter?
I agree completely. But let me say, even if the Niti Aayog did not say this, it is quite likely the Indian economy would grow at this kind of a rapid pace, provided certain preconditions are met.
Okay.
When we come to planning and growth, the tendency is to look in terms of investment, the capital output ratio and so on and so forth. These are of course important factors. But beyond that, you need to look at investment in your social capital, human capital, which is badly neglected. We also need some kind of social harmony. Today, we just heard about the CRPF Jawans being ambushed and killed in
Chhattisgarh.
Yeah, Chhattisgarh. So you have some kind of a civil war going in different parts of the country. In the central tribal belts, in the northeast, there is the Armed Forces Special Powers Act in place. In Kashmir, you have the same thing. You cannot actually grow sustainably if your domestic polity is not at peace and there isn't social harmony. So you need a political vision which is inclusive, which will actually help people realize their productive potential and achieve this kind of growth. If that is done, there is no reason in today's world why we should not be able to grow like this.
Okay.
Even if the world economy is not booming and demanding the kind of stuff that allowed China to grow at this kind of a sustained long-term growth, India is still capable of growing because we have a huge domestic market which we can tap, plus we can draw on the rest of the world for essential inputs as well as for demand for our exports. And this growth is completely doable. But we need to have a political framework which is inclusive and which promotes harmony, and we must invest in human capacity and not just in physical infrastructure.
Let me bring in Mr. Sharma here. Mr. Sharma, from the industry's perspective, do you think all this is possible? If I may, repoint at them, a threefold rise in GDP, rupees 2 lakh increase in per capita GDP, then it says, a threefold increase in central state expenditure. Well, that's a different issue. But then, do you believe it? That's possible?
Yes. So whether practically everybody will have a car or a scooter. And
all those points as well. Do you think that's from an industry perspective?
They have anticipated 8% growth rate. That is achievable because during the last 25 years, our average growth rate was 6.7%, starting from 1991. And during the post-Lehman crisis, our growth rate is 7.4%. So, economy is consistently increasing from 6.7% to 7.2%, then 7.4%. So, 8% in the coming times is not a big issue. That will be achievable. What we have to focus on majorly the 3-4 things.
Okay.
Firstly, we have inherent strengths, like our Honorable Prime Minister talks about 3D, demand, democracy, and demography. But we have to focus on inclusiveness. Inclusiveness by providing the health facilities, education for all, and expenditure in the infrastructure, expenditure in the rural infrastructure, agriculture sector. Then again, we have to focus on the resilience by focusing on the public institutions, strengthening the public institutions, regulatory environment, banking system, and management of our natural resources. That will be very, very important for our resilience. So we need to focus on resilience, inclusiveness, and our inherent strengths. So 8% growth rate is not a big issue we will achieve, and we are anticipating more than 8% because GST implementation itself will increase India's growth rate trajectory by 2 percentage points.
Okay.
So if we are growing at this juncture, we are growing at 7.4%, then after the implementation of GST, our growth rate become more than 9%.
More than 9%. So you say it is achievable.
Yes, yes.
It is achievable. Let's bring in Mr. Harsh Mander. He is also with us. Mr. Mander, you are a member of the National Advisory Council, the NAC also. There are two specific questions to you. One is that do you believe that this transformation from the 5-year plans to the 3-year action plan and then 7-year plan and then 15-year long-term vision will actually translate into better results? And two is that do you also agree with the vision which is being set by Niti Aayog in its just concluded meeting, the ones which we were just talking about, an 8% growth for the next 15 years and a rupees 2 lakh rise in the per capita GDP?
See, the 3-year, 5-year, 7-year, as Nitin Desai said, isn't really important. It's a bit like serving old wine in different bottles. The important thing actually that worries me is that what we have is a trotting out of a set of objectives without an analysis, and nobody can disagree with the fact that we should have high growth, we should have per capita income, we should have fully literate population, farmers' income should double, nutrition should malnutrition should go. Who can disagree with these goals? The problem is that we have to have an understanding that why are these problems persisting even in a high growth economy, with the fastest growing economy in the world, yet every third child in India is malnourished. Farmers are in extremely, there's a continuing agrarian crisis. What are the reasons for these high levels of endemic poverty and hunger persisting in a high growth economy? And I think that unless we see that there's an analysis of what has gone wrong and how we are going to set that right, I don't feel convinced that merely a statement of of objectives is going to transform, and that is what I'm seeing over and over with our government today. So let me just say 2 or 3 very quick things. One is that we are seeing high economic growth with almost jobless growth.
Okay.
There is very, the number of people joining our workforce every month is 1 million. The number of jobs that we are creating is in lakhs. And without large job creation, we are not going to get anywhere, and poverty is not going to go. Who is going to have the money to buy cars and scooters and all of this? Secondly, we're talking about a highly literate, fully literate population. Let us talk about education for all, good quality education for all, which means doubling our public investment in education and also in healthcare and in social protection. Where is the vision for that, or where is the commitment for that?
Okay.
We are seeing the agrarian crisis. What is our imagination for actually protecting farmers' income, building resilience for small grain-fed farmers? I don't see, any of these questions, and malnutrition, as I was saying, that is really related to a whole set of other inequalities. The condition of women, the condition of adolescent girls, the lack of access to clean water and sanitation, and the position of our Adivasi populations, the condition in our slums.
Okay.
None of this I'm seeing addressed in this imagination.
Okay.
So we have a set of saying, yeah, we'd like to dream about all of these changes, but how is it going to happen?
Okay, so what you're saying essentially, Mr. Mander, is that a lot more focus has to be given on the social sectors. That brings me back to Dr. Desai. Dr. Desai, one more criticism which has been coming forward as far as Niti Aayog is concerned is that it's more focused towards manufacturing sector. It's more focused towards, say, maybe industry or just piping up growth rate numbers. And as Mr. Mander was also pointing out, the social sector specifically, education, health, farmer, agriculture sector, these are somewhere left behind.
Not only that, I think the point is this is also where the greatest challenges lie. As Harsh was pointing out, the joblessness. The challenge that you have on providing work to people is going to become worse, not better. Even with 9% growth because of the technological changes taking place. And you will have to ask yourself questions as to, will I really be able to absorb this large workforce given this in a globalized economy which will be subject to the same types of technological changes as are taking place elsewhere. You have to answer questions which were raised by Mr. Mander and Mr. Arun about the distribution issue. In a democracy, can we live with a situation where we live in a globalizing economy where more and more of the benefits accrue to fewer and fewer people? Will it survive? Or will I get these types of uprisings not just in the Naxal areas but much more widespread? What will happen? So I'm saying that what I find worrying is that people are focusing on this wonderful Chandan Chandni ka desh but not worrying about the Agnipath. वो आगे अग्निपथ है भाई चंदन चांदी का तो ये काफी दूर है 15 साल.
So the immediate challenge is what you're saying is what has to be focused on.
अग्निपथ के पास, what are you going to do about that? So I would say that I would have liked to see a Niti Aayog which plays a role in telling the government, don't get carried away by wonderful visions of 15 years. You have great challenges ahead of you, but that you have to answer ways. There are many which we have identified in the course of this discussion, and we are right. Our greatest failure, they made a comparison with China. They did, in the whole presentation, they said China grew by so much, we'll grow by so much. The comparison they should have made is the huge difference between us and China on education and health, and how that education and health is resources are distributed across the population. That is a far bigger difference between us and China than numbers like urban population or even GDP. The difference in the quality of the education and health which is available to ordinary people in the two countries is vastly different.
So it's not proper to go ahead and have that comparison with China until we have similar numbers figures on the social sectors as well. Mr. Arun, you were talking about these areas where the political or rather say the uprising which is causing a lot of concern. The development is not taking place. The infrastructure is not being able to, the government is not being able to go ahead and put in place. And you would remember there was a lot of hue and cry which was created by the opposition when the Niti Aayog was formed. That the welfare in the first budget after that the fund which was allocated to the welfare schemes has come down significantly. How do you look at that? Why is that happening then? Is there an inherent flaw, or is this something which the government is doing it willingly or knowingly?
No, it's a different way of funding development. Earlier, a whole lot of funds used to come from the central government to the states through the planning commission route. Now that is stopped. The planning commission doesn't disburse money. Funds directly transfer in two ways. First, as devolution, as per the finance commission's recommendations, which is 42% of the total revenues of the center. Second is through special schemes of the various union ministries, to which any eligible state government can lay a claim and get money. Now here, in all fairness, you must recognize that the Niti Aayog has a system of laying out outcomes to be achieved in healthcare, primary education, and in water management, which are fairly thought out in great detail, and for which secretaries of the government, of the state government, chief secretaries, and occasionally chief ministers, all of them are convened by the Niti Aayog to monitor, evaluate, and incentivize. So this is happening. But is enough money going into this? It is not. On healthcare, India spends far less than almost any other country you can think of. Public spending on healthcare in India is about 1% of GDP. You cannot sustain the kind of social capacity that is required to generate this kind of growth for 15 years without investing in people's health.
And definitely you cannot compare it with China.
You cannot compare it with China. But China, before it began its reform course in 1978, already had invested in health and education to a large extent. So these are all major issues. But but still, can we grow? We can grow. But as Dr. Desai has been saying, the job of the body like the Niti Aayog is not to claim that we can grow, but to point out the pathway.
What about the concern raised by Mr. Mander about the jobless growth? The unemployment seems to be the biggest concern as far as this entire picture is concerned.
See, when you say jobless, in a state where subsistence is the goal of most people, you cannot really be unemployed. If you're unemployed, you are dead. In very poor states in this country, you might say somebody is unemployed or underemployed, but if he is completely unemployed, he is dead. So that is not possible. So people are living at very low, suboptimal levels of existence, even without a livelihood by engaging in some employment or the other.
Just managing to survive, that's what you're saying.
So the point is, we need to go beyond that. But then, as Dr. Desai said, there are huge technological changes. This technology is not just in labor displacing kind of ways. The entire energy scenario might change. Solar energy might be cheap and plentiful. We might have battery technology leapfrogging to a level where you can do away with conventional energy. All cars might turn electric. And seawater might readily be converted to drinking water.
This will further pose challenges as far as employment generation is concerned.
No, plus it might also give opportunities, not just challenges.
Opportunities also.
So these must be also be kept in mind.
Okay, let me bring in Mr. Sharma. Mr. Sharma, in the initial answer, you said that this is very much possible, and when GST comes into play, we might grow by 9% as well. But how do you answer the concerns raised by Dr. Desai and Mr. Arun in terms of, and Mr. Mander as well, that it being a jobless growth and with the technological advancement, the opportunities might further dwindle?
During the last 3 years, that is also from the reading from this document, a brief document provided by the Niti Aayog, that their focus during the next 3 years will be on the capacity building, like inclusiveness. They will provide expenditure in the various crucial segments of the economy, like in the health sector, education sector, agriculture infrastructure, overall infrastructure, rail, road, port, airport, and then health. Health is a major concern for the overall inclusiveness. So, during the last 3 years, policy environment is also going in the same direction. You check the policy environment during the last 3 years, they have provided so many inclusive policies for the at the grassroots level, like Digital India. Digital India is a major policy framework for the promotion of inclusiveness.
So you're saying all these policies which have been announced by the GOI in the last 3 years
all policies are in the same direction to build the inclusiveness in the economy.
Okay.
So going forward, after the 3 years, they will focus on the advancement, like increasing the trade scenario also with the other economies, capacity building in the infrastructure and manufacturing. So that's why for the manufacturing, they have announced the Make in India. That will be providing fruitful results in the coming times.
Okay.
So with the growth of agriculture, with the growth of manufacturing sector and with the growth of services sector, I believe services sector is growing at the rate of more than 9%. So if 4-5% growth is there in the agriculture sector and 7-8% growth rate in the manufacturing sector, then 8% growth is achievable.
Okay, 4-5% growth in agriculture sector. Well, that's a very
yes. So that's why we have to focus on the agriculture infrastructure.
Okay,
that is possible because we are the larger producer of the agriculture.
That's
items.
fine. One of the major focus areas has to be agriculture. Everybody has been saying this. Let me go back to Mr. Mander. Mr. Mander, we have identified the roadblocks, or rather the obstacles, or maybe the main hindrances as far as achieving this 15-year-long vision is concerned. But once these points are identified, how would you look at the entire idea? It is achievable, yes, in some way. Everybody believes if all these obstacles are tackled. But then what else can be done? You're saying that not enough is being done. What else can be done?
See, Vishal, I'm saying that more of the same is not going to take us to where we are saying we want to go.
Okay.
We right from the years of globalization when it started, there has been a continuous decline, for instance, in formal employment and what is called decent work. So the kind of work, it is true that people are doing some kind of work, but it's the lowest end, unprotected, unhealthy, unsupported, unprotected kind of work with no social security. We're looking at, when you're talking about more expenditure in health, we're still not looking at public provisioning of health, which is what across the world we see is necessary. We're not looking at improvement of public education for all. Of good quality for the poor. So when you compare India and China, we have similar levels of inequality, but for somebody at the bottom decile in China has access to a good school and to a reasonable health facility when they fall ill, which a person in the bottom decile in India just does not have.
So that needs to be taken care of.
Difference that we have to address, and when I'm not seeing anything in the imagination that is going to address any of these issues.
Okay. Let me. We're running short of time, so let me have one quick comment from all three of you, starting with Dr. Desai. Dr. Desai, is there some inherent flaw in this entire vision, or the way it has to be implemented is what is more important? And
I think the way it has to be implemented, if they identify challenges, there are opportunities. I mentioned technology as a constraint, but it is also an opportunity. Solar energy provides more jobs than the same amount of power delivered through a mega power station. Electric cars can be manufactured on a decentralized basis, whereas your internal combustion engine based cars require large centralized factories. So there are opportunities arising from the technological changes one can foresee. But for that, you need a population which is better fed, better educated, in greater state of health, and has much better access to new knowledge. Okay. And I don't think we have that as yet, and I'd focus on that.
Focus on that. Mr. Arun?
Yeah, we also, the primary stress would be on the kind of political framework on which all these people are enabled to work and realize their productive potential. Unless that framework is inclusive, you cannot achieve any kind of growth target.
Okay.
And on that, we don't see many positive signs right now.
Okay. Mr. Sharma, you've already pointed out how the schemes have worked out, but then what can be done?
I would say there must be focus on the social sector with the more focus on agriculture sector with yearly outcomes, that we have targeted this outcome for this year and that will be achievable. So I believe there must be focus on the yearly targets every year to achieve the 3-year plan and 7-year vision and 15 years overall strategy.
So yearly targets can be one of the solutions. It seems everybody is unanimous. on the point that the intention of the government seems to be perfectly placed. The entire vision, which talks about all these facilities for the common people of India, would definitely be a win-win situation for everyone. But to realize this, we would need an unwavering political will and people support, in addition to focus on those areas in which we have been lacking for quite some time, specifically education, healthcare, and several other social sectors. We'll come back again with a different topic. Till then, keep watching Rajya Sabha Television.